birthday coming, and it's all I need. Everything I wanted.
Hey.
Hey, welcome back.
Episode 11. Continuing the slow march towards 100. We will get
Indeed.
there before the end of the year, though. We will get
Before the end of the year, we'll see.
there. Yeah. No, it'll happen. I'm optimistic. I'm gonna run towards it.
I'm actually
Yeah.
very impressed that we even have 11. So here we are.
Oh man.
Excellent.
We've crossed into the double digits, and so at this
Indeed.
point, it's a real thing. As much as it can be. No, I think we were just talking beforehand, and a book that we've both read that I feel is, really, is the word I'm looking for, prescient, or really, important in today's world is actually going to be Snow Crash. And I put another book up here on the side thing that kind of came out at the same time, which is The Sovereign Individual. But Snow Crash, for anybody who's not familiar, is actually a book by Neal Stephenson. It's actually where the word metaverse comes from. So the metaverse is, if you haven't seen or read Snow Crash, essentially it's Inception. Like that whole thought process of you just like logging into the metaverse and kind of like checking out for your life. That's exactly what Snow Crash is about. But it's this really interesting merger, and it takes place in Los Angeles in like the late like 2050 or something like that. I can't remember the actual years on it, but I'll look it up. But the top line,
21st century, unspecified number of years after the worldwide economic collapse. Los Angeles is no longer part of the United States since the federal government has ceded most of its power and territory to private organizations and entrepreneurs.
Yes. And so I think the coolest thing about Snow Crash and the most terrifying thing about Snow Crash is that at the end of the day in that particular book, they kind of walk you through the bifurcation of society within a single nation. And so very specifically what Steve just said, or what Bonder just said, is, you get to a point in time where your government doesn't matter, and all that matters is the place you hold a passport, essentially. Like, where do you throw your allegiance, and where you throw your allegiance?
Where do you have rights?
Yeah.
Where have you purchased rights, really?
And that's, I think, the thing that's the most terrifying that we're kind of starting to see all over the world right now. And it's like, I don't know if people have seen what's kind of going on in Texas, and this is kind of what I wanted to talk about, is this city in Texas that, actually I'll drop it in this way, just so that way I'm not unnimming myself in certain things. But this city in Texas that is boop boop boop, that's kind of starting. And so this is me just kind of pulling up a tweet. But there's a city essentially called Epic City, which is going to be a Muslim-only Sharia law city planned in Texas, apparently of 102 acres. They built a 40,000 square foot mosque. And they're essentially just going to take over. It's going to be completely, everyone is Muslim here, is what it says. This is not a warning. Actually, this is what's happening in Irving, Texas. And they're starting to essentially create a Sharia state within the United States. This has already happened also in like Minnesota. It's one of the things that we were seeing when we were, or one of the biggest issues with Ilhan Omar that people were talking about is like, hey, this state is coming. And I'm just really, really curious to see how this is going to unfold, because I actually do think this is the future. I actually believe this is the most correct. And I think Neal Stephenson got it right in Snow Crash when he kind of went through all of the things that are happening in the future state of Los Angeles that he kind of put together, what's going on. And so I don't know, I'm just curious your take on this, of like, how is this going to look in LA? Because I think we're going to get to a world in LA where we are kind of having a similar thing happening where, oh, hang on a sec. What do you think is going to be happening in LA? I kind of see this happening in LA.
Mhm. So one of the things that's fascinating about thinking about it, and probably one of the reasons why Neil chose to put this book in LA or put the setting of LA, is because LA is literally already there. Now, we don't have Muslim neighborhoods, but we have something like 500 neighborhoods, and each one of them has their own vibe and particularities and the rest of it. And so we're already at a place where, like, in my neighborhood, it's like there's no way or no reason for me to drive literally 2 hours to get to a neighborhood that's across town and think that we have any kind of relationship with each other. Like, we don't. It's just in quote unquote incorporated LA, but it's so different. It's 100% a different world. Like, I'm on the east side, and when you go to the west side, it's literally a different world. And the space and distance and people are it's unbelievable just trying to wrap your head around it. So, and a lot of people don't think about that. They're like, oh yeah, it's just, LA is just kind of like Austin, maybe a little bit bigger. And it's like, no, there's literally, like, I couldn't tell you how many, but there's, like, Austin has a cool city center with all the sky rises. LA has like 7 of those. It's like, this is not, these are incompatible, like, comparisons. Like, there's 7 different downtowns, including
Yep.
downtown LA, which is its own thing, unlike all the other downtowns, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, you're because there's like Culver City, Studio City, and if people aren't familiar, there's all these different boroughs is probably the best way to describe them, or enclaves. But what's unique about
Centuries
LA
of
is they
downtown
all,
LA, the whole it just
yeah,
goes on.
they
And
they
then
all
Long Beach and Pasadena, and yeah, it's just
and it all kind of stemmed out of an interesting predicament that we have here in LA. Is LA is the biggest backlot in the world, and you don't need that anymore. All of these, like Pasadena, if people have heard that name before, Pasadena has a couple different areas where, like, this particular street looks like, New England, and then this street looks like, the middle of nowhere in Mexico. All these different vibes and different styles of architecture. You have other places that look like, oh, this could be the Midwest. And that's a really interesting thing that LA has, is they have these little boroughs and these little enclaves. But I'm increasingly more under the, or coming to the understanding that Bitcoin is going to expedite the, separation of our cities, but then it's also going to expedite the creation of completely new economies.
Yeah.
You
What
know,
it's
and it's
going to
gonna be,
do, it like you have to go through the logic of it, and sometimes the logic can be a little bit fuzzy, but I think ultimately it forces people to extremely, and especially with AI coming in now too, it forces people to extremely discount everything they see online, right? Oh, well, you know what? I got a call on, like, my phone, or I got an email, and it seemed like it was from my mom, and it said she was in distress and she needs my Bitcoin for some reason. Like, all of a sudden, well, I don't really trust email. All of a sudden, I don't really trust my phone. And then, okay, well, what do you trust? Well, one of the only things you can actually trust is MeatSpace. As they say in Mr. Robot, like, the encryption we use was the real world. Nobody can tap that encryption. I'm sure space satellites can hear everything and see everything, blah, blah, blah. But, like, okay, that's just a small group. We're talking about distributed actors and the mass of society being able to interact with each other on a commercial basis. And all of these protocols are broken, except for the one protocol that humans are made to interact with, which is the local protocol.
yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to somebody else today, and the only realm in which I feel humans will ever not, or rather, will ever be completely safe and secure is farming. And I know that sounds weird, but there's going to be a lot of moments where I don't think I think robots can do a
Special
lot.
guest rolling in.
Oh, look at this.
Hey, what's up?
Straight
How's it
up.
going? We're kind of we're talking about Snow Crash, and have you read Snow Crash,
I have not.
Zach? It's a it's a great book. It's literally the sovereign individual thesis in a narrative form. So if you haven't read the Sovereign Individual, it's another one, but it is a very very, very unique and focused and targeted idea. And it's kind of like, how do we walk out what's going to happen when governments actually have to provide real value to a place where it's like, you have to provide real value. That real value actually needs to be providing real things. And if
Like
you
it's
can't,
not going to
then
work if it's like just somebody saying that this is real value, guys. Like nobody will believe you. There'll be, and then there'll be somebody else will be like, well, okay, but here's my competitive product that's even better.
Yeah.
So,
The thing about Sovereign Individual, I mean, many of the things that book really just totally gets right. But one of the things that sticks with me is the Industrial Revolution really being the thing that allowed for the superpowers that we've experienced over the last 100 years to even exist. And that concentration of wealth and concentration of factories and concentration of people in one spot made it really easy for the government to just go and be like, well, we're going to take your shit. We're going to tax you. We're going to do whatever. And, the decentralization of manufacturing capability, robots, energy sources,
3D
whatever, all of that, Bitcoin, being a key component of the capital behind that. It always seemed very much so like we were going back to what the world was previously, which was a lot of, multipolar powers, a lot of people vying for power. And I don't think that necessarily has to mean more conflict. I think it can mean less conflict, but there's just not Russia, China, the United States, these giant superpowers.
There's actually one thing that they kind of brought out in the book is there actually was less conflict because everybody kind of just understood the different like social constructs, because at the end of the day it's like, oh, and one of the things, like, you have to go to college, to Costa Nostra, like city college or like community college or whatever, to get like a 5-year degree to deliver
pizza college. Yeah, pizza college.
It's awesome. It's a phenomenal book. I highly recommend it. But it's like, because to deliver these pizzas, you have to understand how to drive on these roads where you're flying like 600 miles an hour in these crazy, thanks camera, I need to fix this, in these crazy streets of LA where everything's going wild. And so it's a really interesting take on everything. Like, part of it's run by the mob. Like, it's cool.
Dope.
One of the things that comes to mind thinking about it is just how does, like, the Sovereign Individual thesis on it was, it's kind of more intellectual. Hey, this is how we're going to lay it out. And you kind of get the impression that he's just like, well, what's really going to happen is that everybody's going to move to the Bahamas because it's the Bahamas. And it's like, there's something nagging in the back of my mind that says, no, because there's nothing in the Bahamas. There's just nice beaches, and there's no people, there's no economy, there's no industry, there's no like inventive community, there's no creative community. It's just people trying to escape everyone. Like, that's not a community of people. If everyone's there because they're trying to escape, bro, nobody wants to be your friend because they're all trying to escape each other. Like, it's just, this is not a good community. It's not a good space, right? The alternative, or the other side of that coin, is like, you're going to want to be in a large community. You're going to want to be in a diverse community and surrounded by people who are doing interesting things and pushing in interesting ways and building interesting things and being creative and all the rest of that. Now, that's what you get in Snow Crash. Snow Crash is this dystopian like, we're talking about communities on top of communities, which your local communities of all these weird political systems in the legacy world that are all kind of, some of them are working, some of them are falling apart, but then you also have the metaverse, which is like your pristine, like, hey, this is where I live. Like, this is my office. This is like what I believe is where my identity is, and like all this other stuff. And it really kind of jumps into that, and you get to see these two worlds collide, if you will.
Yeah, and the dystopia that is the real world as well, which is funny, which is kind of the similar thing to like one of my favorite movies actually of the last decade is Ready Player One. If it's on an airplane, I'm watching it. Like, it doesn't matter. I've probably seen it 1,000 times. Judge me, that's fine. But it's just the escapism. It's the voyeurism that I think humans are. The novelty is probably the better way to say it. But it's like the novelty we're so primed to. It's like we just love this novel nature of the digital, which the digital allows us to do so quickly. And I think that's going to be one of the greatest things about kind of the future is there is a great desire to go somewhere like Mars because there's novelty in it, and to go somewhere like Pluto because there's novelty in it. And so there's this great desire for the unknown, just like Star Trek. But by the same token, that could also be our downfall. It's like, okay, well, maybe there's an interesting thing if somebody wants to see the world burn and like launch a nuclear attack or whatever it is. So I know if you believe nukes are real, but yeah.
Well, that's kind of a premise. I mean, jumping off to another book, but that's kind of the premise behind The Expanse and that whole series. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but I highly recommend it. Very, it bridges the gap between like now and Star Wars or Star Trek. So it's like, no, we literally have not left the solar system, but we've done the whole solar system. And so we got all like, we got spaceships and stuff, but it's really like we can't figure out how to jump to light speed or above. And it really jumps into the politics and the social systems within our solar system. And yeah, JD, you get like at one point, one of the characters starts bombarding Earth with meteors because he was raised in the belt or the outer rim or whatever, and he hates Earth. Well, of course he does, because Earth has treated him like shit his whole existence, right? It's just like, F these guys. Like, we're talking about totally different political factions, right?
Hey, man.
It's fascinating.
Rednecks existed a long time, man. There's always going to be conflict between people in the mountains and people in the cities. It's a circle of life, man. It's part of how it goes. Ain't one better than the other. I don't know. I don't. Okay, riddle me this, guys. I don't understand the whole terraforming Mars thing. I mean, I get it on the one level of like, yes, if there's a fucking meteor that rolls by and destroys Earth, we need like, Moonbase 2 or whatever. Okay, fine, I get that. But other than that, the idea, like, this is how it comes off to me. Tell me where I'm wrong. The idea, like, oh man, Earth is fucked. We got to go to Mars. Like, what? Have y'all motherfuckers seen Mars? Like, I don't. Like, we could just fix Earth.
Yeah, that's the escapism attitude. Like, take it to the nth degree. No, let's really not face our problems. Let's just totally fiat our problems and ignore them, and we'll just go away. Like, there's actually, I mean, C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce was like about this. Literally, like, oh yeah, hell is one of the definitional qualities of hell is that no one actually has to face any of their problems. They can just move further away and build whatever they want and have all the resources they need and blah, blah, blah. Just move further away so you don't have to deal with the other people, right? Like, C.S. Lewis has a vision of that is what hell is. Escaping just everyone all the time. Like, oh, look at the surface of Mars. Well, it's pretty much hell.
Let's go there. It'll be great.
Yeah, we got to do it.
I will say though, the one thing that's unique about the Mars thing is if you walk everything out far enough, at the end of the day, our sun is going to supernova. That's just the way it works, right? And so
If
there
you
is
believe in
a
stars. I don't believe in stars. Stars aren't real.
camera. This is so sad. But at the end of the day, I was talking to some folks the other day, and they're just like, "Your camera always do this?" I was like, "Yes, it doesn't matter what computer I'm on." They're like, "You probably need a new router and all this other stuff." And I'm like, "God!" And it's actually the router at the box, because or at the that comes in from my fiber because it's every computer. But anyways, there is going to be a time when the world is going to be engulfed in some type of supernova and then, buried in a black hole because the sun is going to go out. Now, is that going to be in the next 5 years? Probably not. But, it's one of those things that on a long enough time horizon, it's going to happen. And so even though I know Mars is, for me as a believer in God, but then also I believe God is the God of the universe. And I do actually think, I do think, part of the game as an interesting thing. And I know it's like, I don't think God is a gamer, but I do think part of the thing is like, hey, I made these things. Will they figure it out? Like, will they survive? Can they get off the rock? Ooh, I don't know. Like, it's like kind of an interesting thing because I feel the belief I have is the reason God knows everything. And the reason everything is like recycled, right? It's like every animal has veins, right? And those veins pump blood, right? It's like all these, that works. That's an effective system for getting things around. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to reuse this. And so in my mind, one of the challenges we have is as a species and as a creation is, the desire and need effectively to be interplanetary.
Yeah, I think ultimately totally necessary. I'm totally on board with that. But I always just crack up at the like, Earth is super fucked. Let's go to Mars.
Yeah.
Well, we have Teslas here, and Teslas are
What?
Nazis. So.
Yeah. No, yeah, JD, I tend to agree with you on that. What's going to happen is we're going to terraform the stars just because it's like, oh, this would be fun, and also natural resources and whatever else. But it's going to be like, oh, this is going to be like that's going to be cool. Let's do that, right?
Yeah.
People,
Imagine being a robber baron of the stars, the Rockefeller of space.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the human story too, which is, oh, well, we have this land here, and like for instance, pre-Babel, and then God's like, no, you're gonna go everywhere, and then like civilization, Western civilization says, oh, we're gonna have we're gonna make Europe this is where civilization is, and then oh well, we just discovered America. Well, there's all sorts of reasons why we need to go there and figure that out and explore that, like just because of our interest and curiosity, and oh, there's also resources there that we can use to like this solves some of our problems. We can go take this back, and I think that pattern just kind of continues. And I think that's a part of the human story, honestly, because we're meant to go out, we're meant to come back, we're meant to explore, we're meant to build and build and build.
100%.
How long do you think it takes for Peter Schiff to capitulate after we find gold on a meteorite that we can harvest?
Never.
He's never capitulating. And in
Yeah.
fact, he has been right. Gold is.
He's not wrong.
Bitcoiners don't want to admit it. Peter Schiff wins this round. Son of a bitch.
I mean, gold is down $14 today, but it is up significantly on the year. On the year, it is up 10%. So this one to you, Mr. Schiff.
So JD, going back to your original reason for bringing up the snow crash thing, what's your vision for LA? Like with all of those details and nuances considered.
Yeah, I'm actually really, I do think it's going to get worse before it gets better, unfortunately. But I think there's going to be an interesting opportunity, and we're kind of at this moment with Altadena burning down and with, the Palisades burning down to reshape and rebuild some of these communities in a more 21st century way. I'm optimistic that it can be around a church and a school. And I would actually argue that the best school is a farm, but that's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would be, it's going to be interesting to see how those communities rebuild. And if they can be rebuilt in a walking fashion, a more Euro style fashion. It's going to be harder just because I know Americans we're car whores. We
I
like
didn't
our
know you were
cars.
a communist, JD. What
Dude,
is this?
man.
15-minute city, smart city? Get the fuck out
Don't
of here.
don't want 15-minute cities. Don't want smart cities. I
don't
want
know
as
about
many
that.
guns as possible. But I do think there's a really interesting and cool opportunity to build citadels again, and build cathedrals again, and kind of repoint people back towards the stars. And I'm saying specifically God and heaven, but we'll see. It's gonna be a long, hard road, and I think the bigger challenge we're gonna have is because the money is broken, it's going to be way easier for those 15-minute cities to arrive. Because that's not what I want. I don't want 15-minute cities. Like what I want is, the sovereign, and I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that looks like, but like I want the sovereign individual aspect of things, which is probably closer to Snow Crash. I just don't want it to be as dystopian as Snow Crash.
It looks like basic property rights being respected. It's really just not complicated.
It's fair,
but they're not going to, and they don't.
Yeah, it's fair. What do you think, Zach? Though, what's your take on how this all shakes out?
With respect to the fires, or just LA in general, or
just LA in
California
general,
broadly?
what
LA
is-
in general, yeah.
Okay. Good news first, I guess. All of this is reversible like that. Snap of a finger, and we can be back to massive economic expansion, prices down, quality up. So I think the potential is there for this to do a very quick turnaround. But unfortunately, I don't think that it's going to happen. I think that it will probably be another 25 to 50 years. And I always go 25 and 50 years because I just think in terms of generations. Is the current generation is the current cohort of kids in any position to do anything about what's going on right now? No, they're not. Boomers still have another 15 or 20 years before they're totally dead and gone. Sorry to be morbid about it, but from a power perspective, that's the battle that's being fought right now. And boomers are going to hold on to that for as long as humanly possible. The other element of it is that, and this is LA specific. This isn't necessarily true for NorCal, excluding San Francisco and Marin County, but LA specifically, so many of the people who would be necessary and useful in the political fight to come have left. And I think that we're going to continue to see that bifurcation in the United States. I think that it is going to speed up. I think it's going to get more severe. I think we're going to continue to see red versus blue bifurcation. And I think that California will become bluer and bluer. And I have hope that the fires could do something for this politically, but I haven't seen any indication that there's even a modicum of intellectual rigor here with regards to voting. Case in point, they just voted another tax increase here that went into effect yesterday or whatever. You got people in LA paying nearly 11%. You got Palmdale paying like 11.5%. Like what sales tax? Like what? And they voted this in for people to solve the homeless problem, of which nothing has been done for the last 10 years, despite $4, $5, $6 billion being thrown at it. So the voting bloc is like clearly not aware at all.
So
or real.
When I hear that, when I encounter that, it's like 100% valid. Yeah. The thing that gets me, and I think it's just a matter of this. There's going to be a switch in people's mind where they're like, wait a second. The policies, and anybody who's paying any attention already knows this. And you see tweets about it every day, which is the policies for the right are this, which are completely brain dead. Like these policies are brain dead. The policies for the left are this, which are brain dead. All these policies, it's like the same people and the same absurdity just all over again. You're like, wait a second, this is, at some point, you go through the process of, oh, what's insanity? Well, it's just doing the same thing over and over and over again and getting the same results over and over again, thinking you're going to get different results. right? Like everyone knows that this is the case. This is a part of our culture, and yet we're still here doing this. I genuinely think that there's going to be a groundswell that basically says, wait a second. Once you see that fiat is the problem, you don't unsee it. And the more people who see that are going to start believing that, and they're just going to convince more people. At some point, it becomes wait a second, we've tried everything. Everything's still broken. Why is it still broken? And then they're going to have to turn to other solutions. In the past, those other solutions have always been revolution, right? Our voice doesn't matter. Therefore, we have to resort to violence. JD, I think that you're like, yep. That's what's going to happen.
I think that still needs to happen.
Well, I mean, it's still happening, right? Like we're literally seeing Teslas get vandalized every day. Now, the next word,
and that's actually why I think we're on track for another revolution. Because the problem is there's enough. JFK and Ronald Reagan killed America. When they got rid of asylums, they killed America. Now the problem is, it's really difficult to know who's crazy when everybody's on Xanax.
Right. So, but here's the point I'm trying to get to, because the conversation always gets cut off right at this point, and everyone's like, "Well, I've got the solution. I figured. Oh, we got it. Like, here's what's going to happen next." I'm like, "No, you guys, the entire game theoretical and political structure of reality has changed since Bitcoin. All of the stuff that the Sovereign Individual book talks about, all of that exists presently today. You cannot expect the same returns on violence that you could in times past because of the things, Zach, you were talking about. All of the centralization of factories and everything else, that's now distributed. There's no oh, well, we're going to have to, if we just draw a line around this area, then it'll be under control. And it's that's not the case anymore. Nobody thinks that's the case. It's ridiculous to think that's the case, right? Now, okay, well, maybe the line, maybe we can do it like drones, right? We'll just unleash 100,000 drones, and each person will have a drone just hovering over their head all day. And if they try to, and it's okay, well, that's just asking for evolution. So it's just never going to work that way. That's when we get to maybe there's an economic solution. Maybe the problem is fiat, and maybe the economic solution is Bitcoin. And when you go down that path, you realize that yes, that's the solution, and yes, it illuminates every single one of our problems. It shows us that, wow, I didn't realize that this was actually the problem. When there's no accountability in the money, well, then you're not going to solve your homelessness problem. You're just going to be paying all these nonprofits to bankroll more and more people, right? It's never going to solve the homeless problem. Oh, when there's inflation in your money, you're always going to have more homeless because the cost of housing is always up. Oh, okay, well, this is about the money all of a sudden. And when people start to realize that, when people start to actually internalize that and see that there's a solution that's not revolution, they're going to choose Bitcoin. Everybody's going to choose Bitcoin. It's just the exact same thing that's happening in the boardrooms of all these major companies that are trying to adopt Bitcoin. Oh, what are our options? Well, we can buy gold. Why would this is ridiculous to buy gold, etc. Or whatever they're thinking. Or we can buy Bitcoin. Actually, that kind of is interesting. It's forward thinking. It's different. So,
I think that's true. I think the timeline. I mean, obviously, I think everybody will figure Bitcoin out, but I think the timeline of, I'll put it this way. I think California collapses before it gets rebuilt. I don't think that it makes, a U-turn on the direction that it's going. And for one primary reason, which is your hypothesis on that point, Bondor, was requires an element of self-awareness and a willingness to seek the truth, which is the polar opposite of the leftism that has taken over parts of this state. They just don't have that capacity. They literally don't care. But so again, I think that they will self-immolate before rational entities and people and organizations can kind of sweep back in, clean up the mess, and rebuild the state.
I think that
Just-
kind of goes to this whole thing of the nationalism, and this is part of the sovereign individual thesis, is like nationalism as backlash. I would argue that wokeism is a nationality. I
Yeah.
would argue that the ideology of the left is a national
And
identity.
you can probably argue the same thing for the right.
Yeah,
Trumpism,
100%.
MAGAism is also just
Trumpism, yeah.
nationalism. Both of them are nationalism. They're just for different nations within the thing. And that's
and it's
again,
the
that's
decline of the
hard
nation
because
state.
of fiat. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think what's really interesting, if you look at this, and if you haven't read this book,
I think-
these are all the theses that they had, and they were pretty damn spot on. And like the end of the welfare state by 2010, so they were off, I think, on that because we're in
Right,
2025 now. But I actually think the
That's-
end of the welfare state is coming.
That'll come. I think maybe mid 2030s at the earliest. I actually think the nationalism. I don't think the left are nationalistic. They're ideological, at best, and don't have any respect for the nation that they're in or wherever they're at. It doesn't matter
or
where
their own
leftists are at.
ideology.
So I see that as a backlash to I see nationalism as a backlash to the ultra leftism that we've been going through for 35 years. But of course, it can be its own ideological nightmare as well.
So
without
one of
a
the things I
principled
keep
approach.
like I always just come back to this thought, and that's the game theory around Bitcoin. Every time somebody gets converted to Bitcoin, they don't. I mean, apart from people who convert to Bitcoin and then get into shitcoins, or like, oh well, it was just a right wing extremist group or whatever that whatever random conclusion they come to. The people who actually figure it out, get to it, they're like, wait a second. People who are interested in the truth, they figure it out, and there's basically nothing. They become the intolerant minority. There's nothing that the left or the right that can do to convince them otherwise. And it becomes easier for all of the legacy systems and all of the legacy processes to just not fight Bitcoin and instead to just adopt it. And then when they adopt it, the same incentives that change somebody from like being bought into the legacy world, but after the truth, and then they get into Bitcoin and they're like, oh, well, this is a higher truth. It makes more sense and blah, 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 solves all these problems.
Yep.
Okay. So it basically just kind of in a subversive way infiltrates all of the legacy systems. Everybody at a company that's like, I guess we're going to buy Bitcoin now because it's the memeable thing to do. Like that's going to be on their balance sheet, and then they're going to be responsible, and then they're going to have to look up what have we done, and
I think
we'll figure out from there. And everybody has to go down the rabbit hole where literally every single person on Earth is on the same journey that ends at Bitcoin or is beyond Bitcoin. And we're all just at different stages of the journey. The future's here, it's just not evenly distributed yet.
Yeah. I'm very optimistic that I think the most interesting and valuable thing going on right now is actually the Tesla riots. And what I mean by that is if you are a liberal and you are defacing a Tesla and you get arrested for that, you are going to immediately be pissed off at the federal government. If you are a liberal and you own a Tesla and your Tesla is now vandalized by another liberal, because there's no MAGA people doing that, you are immediately going to have a shock to your system, right? Like that is actually like the Tesla thing is actually the best marketing for a Trump 2028 run in a really interesting way. And it's also, though, I think the first chink in the matrix. And it's this really interesting thing where it's kind of like, it's that the Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other. It's literally that meme of like, oh, you're the bad guy, but it's literally wokeism pointing at wokeism, because originally wokeism was correct in buying Teslas because it was the green thing to do. And now you hate Tesla because it's the other thing to do. And so it's this, it's the I can't remember the name of the Asian dragon that's eating its own tail, but it's literally that.
The Ouroboros.
Yeah, it's the Ouroboros of wokeism. Like it's literally the Ouroboros of wokeism right now. And that gives me hope that we're going to get to a moment where, I'm not going to say more people are going to wake up, but what I'm going to say is I think the general sentiment is going to shift to a desire for something to cling on to, and that's going to be truth. And then ultimately, I think that truth is Bitcoin, personally.
Can you imagine how how exhausting and how expensive it is to be a leftist right now.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
first of all, okay, so Elon launches Tesla, and you're leftist, and you're like, fuck yeah, green car. So you go buy
Finally!
the Roadster, you get the $120,000 Model S, and then a few years later, Elon's evil. Fuck, I gotta burn my Tesla. So now you're out 120 grand, and you lit your fucking car on fire. Like, this is to have no principles
Yeah.
or no framework at all. Is
Yeah.
very expensive,
You
and
know,
very exhausting.
the silver lining in all of this, though, is you hate Maha, and so McDonald's is back on the menu. You are now at a place where eating garbage fast food
Like full
is the
circle.
best
Crazy.
alternative. The problem is Taco Bell for a family of 4 is $85.
Well, I mean, look, they were cutting their dicks off. They're dyeing their hairs blue. Like, whether McDonald's takes them out of the gene pool or their own dick cutting, they're out. In 25 years, there's less of them.
Oh, man. It is wild that it is like, I didn't even think about that, but like wokeism is the Ouroboros of itself, and the only way that it survives is if it mind viruses other people, and the only way that that can do that is education, and so that's why you want to close the Department of Education. Correct. Check.
And the USAID thing. Like one of the things I saw in one interview, somebody was like went to a Tesla protest line, right? Interviewed all the people. Every single one of them was a boomer, and they were all so mad. And they're like explaining why they're mad. And they're like, well, because Elon Musk shut down. Like, look, she lost a $35 million grant for whatever. It's like the person standing next to them in the interview. And you're like, oh, well, that's why they're mad. They don't care about Tesla. They're mad because like they can no longer suck at the teeth. Like that's why they're mad.
I really want to. I want to know. I'm curious how significant the hit to the organized crime that we've seen over the last 5 years is going to be with the shutting down of USAID. For instance, I don't know if y'all remember, but Pepperidge Farm remembers when these fucking protests, riots were going on. There were entire pallets of bricks being delivered to the places that were supposed to be, where the riots were going to be. So this whole thing was highly fucking organized. Obviously, to get a bunch of mentally ill human beings to blow shit up, you basically need a bunch of organization, and you have to pay them, and that's what we saw over the last 5 years. So I'm curious, these Tesla protesters, obviously, I'm sure some of them are paid. It's fairly organized, plus the violent ones. So, like, how much... the question is, how much did we kneecap this behavior with removing USAID? Like, are we going to see pallets of bricks being dropped off during the next riots, or did we actually blow a significant blow to the organized chaos that's been propagated on us for the last 5 years?
I feel the answer to that lies in who collects the data. I think if we don't have independent arbiters of truth that are not the government, the FBI and whatever it is, we will never know the answer to that question. And
well,
I think
we will. I mean, if we see a bunch of fucking riots pop out and they're laying pallets of bricks again, like the money came from somewhere.
No, that's true. But
so this is like, look it up on Twitter, just like right now or after the call. Like, there's literally unbelievable evidence that USAID explicitly was funding narcotic and cartel organizations. Like, it's just tons of it out just all over the place. Oh yeah, and you like the picture USAID like on a random building in the middle of Mexico where there's nothing going on except for narcotics. The whole thing. It's like literally like Zach, totally valid question. How much of it is now done because of that? How much of it was literally just being entirely funded because of that? Right?
Yeah.
How much of the US government was funding the other side of the quote unquote war on drugs to work? It's mind boggling.
100%. And the people who think that like getting a caravan of human beings across multiple continents to walk across a border, like that was some natural fucking phenomenon. Like, have you ever tried to play telephone? Like, you can't get 3 adults to say the same fucking words after they whispered it into each other's ears, much less organize millions of people walking across a fucking continent.
Yeah,
break.
No. or across an ocean because so many of them came from Africa and China.
Yeah, the number of
How they get-
Moroccan
Wow. Yeah, they
and
definitely walked.
South African
Absolutely.
immigrants was wild.
Yeah, they just all got together and were like, "Fuck it, let's do it. Let's invade the United States."
gonna walk.
No funding at all. Anyway,
It's wild too when you go down the rabbit holes, but of the the world wars, right? It's like all the things that are coming out now about Hitler living out his days in Argentina and the bankers funding both sides of that war, which I absolutely agree with. Because there's a lot of NIMBY, and I've been to a couple different places where there've been genocides, and I went to Cambodia and I went to Vietnam and a couple of these different places where they have, Cambodia specifically had the killing fields, and I went to Rwanda as well, and it's really fascinating when you look at those like microcosms of what's the word I'm looking for? I think the word is just like of terror on both sides. It's like you get people whipped up into a fervor, which is the Tesla thing right now, where they feel like they have to act and they have to do this thing, they have to dehumanize. And that was World War II. It's like the people on the other side. My favorite story, and I think somebody was making a movie about this, and I was actually looking at doing one too. It'd be a great AI one. Is are you guys familiar with the World War I Christmas Day soccer game?
yeah.
So if you're not familiar with that, in World War I, there was a soccer game, was a Christmas Day ceasefire, where essentially the British and the Americans and the Germans stopped. They started singing Crystal Knot, which is, Silent Night. And then after they did that, they all came out and they all played a soccer game. There was a soccer game in the middle of these killing fields in France. And thank you every time I'm making a point, camera. This is lovely. And there was a soccer game in the middle of these killing fields in France on Christmas Day. And they basically celebrated. They shared cigarettes. They, did whatever storytelling they could because there's a language barrier. And then they went back to their trenches the next morning and they started killing each other again.
This launched one of the greatest, probably the greatest commercial I think that has ever produced was an Adidas commercial about exactly this day. So if you'd like a visual, just Google it. It's on YouTube. I think it was Long Live Sport, World War I. But yes, supporting details for your point, JD.
Yeah. Let's look. Oh yeah. Yep. Adidas, Long Live Sport.
That's how much that commercial had an impact on me. I literally know the name of it. It's been hanging out in my brain for years. It's fucking good.
Let's just because we're here and we're almost at time too, but let's just for sake of funsies, we'll watch it together.
This episode brought to you by Adidas.
Yeah, I know. And then we're gonna get us canceled.
Incoming!
It's the guy from Remember the Titans.
Stay down. Wait, no! Get back! Get back here! Get down!
As epic and great as that is,
Hold on. I'm buying some sneakers real quick. I'm buying some cleats.
It's wild to me though. I mean, this kind of goes to what we're talking about. They're like wokeism and leftism, like taking some of these things. Like that is a beautiful moment, right? I'm not discounting that, but it's like just stripping all of the like raw gore from something, and then just been like, oh, this is like such a happy moment. It's like you realize what was going on there. It's also one of my favorite things about the Bible. If anybody's ever actually like read the Bible, you're like, this is literally the most vicious, violent book in existence. But it's great. It's got a lot of morals and fiber in there. But anyways, yeah, thank you guys for jumping in and jumping on. Yeah, any closing thoughts or ideas?
I don't know. Curious to see what happens with the tariff stuff. I was thinking most of yesterday, we focused so much on the negative potentialities of this, but I was like, there's got to be a bunch of fucking people in this country who are looking at this going, hell yeah, now I can go manufacture or produce this thing at a competitive rate.
Yep.
And I'm going to get to it like now.
Mhm.
Which I'm all for, like, duh. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think that in closing thoughts, when and if you are interested in the truth and you go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole of truth, you start to realize, like, at least for me, for what I've realized, is that money really does affect outcomes in really profound ways. And failing to understand that is failing to understand the logic behind all of our political and economic reality and what happens next, and seeing down those paths. Where we go from here is, like, you can figure it out. Not going to be easy. I certainly don't have the answers, but the logic is pretty sound. You can figure it out.
Good stuff. I feel I've tossed most. So if I have any closing thoughts, it's buy Bitcoin.
Buy Bitcoin. It's good. It's only getting better, you guys. It's
Only
going to
getting
get worse
better.
first. It's getting better, though.
It's gonna get worse. 58K incoming. Get ready.
Yeah.
Oh God. Oh God. Oh God.
Hopefully you got some dry powder ready.
No. Who the fuck has money? Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
The only guy who has money is Warren Buffett, and hopefully he just buys Bitcoin. So we'll see. Stranger things have happened, man.
If you have money, drop a line in the chat and let us know how you
Drop a
got
line in the
that.
chat.
I'd like to figure out how to
Yeah.
replicate that strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This money thing. Tell me what I need to do to get some of that money of yours.
All right, homies.
Good stuff.
Good to see you.
All right. Peace.
Cheers.
Got a good thing coming, and it's all I